It all started with this.
A little rat, a little weasel. But Vladimir Putin locked him up for embezzling 150 million. Now what? Putin locked him up. Well, say something to Putin about locking Magomedov up. Do something about it. Do something about it. No money left.
If you have a question, ask.
And he posts a picture of Kadyrov on his Instagram site. Kadyrov is the Chechen dictator. You're mad rat!
My name is Greg, and I'd like to welcome you back to GK, where we discuss all things boxing and MMA. Today, we'll be doing a deep dive into Khabib Nurmagomedov's connections to figures some might consider to be shady or even criminal. To find out once and for all, was Conor right? So let's not waste any time and just jump right into it.
Ziyavudin helped a lot of athletes in Russia, and we have very big team, Eagles MMA in Russia, and we pray for him, and we'll see what's gonna happen. We will see.
After Khabib won the lightweight title at UFC 223, he got on the mic and in Russian asked Vladimir Putin for help in releasing a man he called his brother from jail. That man is Ziyavudin Magomedov. So what's the connection? Well, if you ever wondered why Khabib never seemed to worry too much about money while competing, this guy is the reason. Most MMA athletes have to hold down at least one job when they're fighting due to the cost of training, particularly when they haven't yet made it to a bigger promotion like the UFC, and even then, that's not always a guarantee that they'll be able to devote 100% of their time to mixed martial arts. Some UFC fighters still only make $30,000 per fight, and Khabib himself was only getting paid $65,000 per fight with a $65,000 win bonus as recently as 2016. After training and traveling expenses, that's hardly enough to live lavishly. And yet, Khabib did. The same year that he was making less than $120,000 per fight, he was driving around in a 2016 Mercedes AMG GT, a car with a retail sticker north of $130,000. The same car was totaled by one of Khabib's friends that same year, and it didn't seem to bother him much, if at all. And why would it? He didn't buy it. It was gifted to him by his biggest financial backer, Ziyavudin Magomedov. Like Kanye West once said, having money isn't everything, not having it is. And this man made sure that all Khabib had to do was focus on his fighting career, and everything else would be taken care of. He's the reason why Khabib felt so comfortable offering Tony Ferguson money out of his own purse to make the fight between them. He's the reason why you never heard a peep out of Khabib about training, injury, or traveling expenses, even though he usually has an entourage of over 20 people with him.
I just want to make a lot of money and tell people money is not everything for this life.
First you want to make a lot of money though, right?
Yeah, first.
This isn't well known, but in 2017, Khabib had an issue with his back and had to have surgery. He didn't want to alert the UFC due to not wanting to be viewed as an injury-prone fighter. Ziyavudin Magomedov paid for his operation, hospital stay, and recovery in Germany. Magomedov was also the founder of Eagles MMA Academy, a club that Khabib is the president of, and his father, the late Abdelaziz Nurmagomedov, was the head trainer in. In his interview with Forbes magazine, where he was ranked 63rd on the list of 100 richest businessmen in Russia, he claimed to be receiving half the profit coming out of the gym, but wouldn't disclose exactly how much. He also attempted to purchase a stake in the UFC in 2015, but after being hit with a number that he felt was unreasonable, decided to invest in his own promotion, Fight Nights Global, which eventually became one of the most successful and popular MMA organizations in Russia. In fact, there were plans of expansion into Brazil and the United States in 2018, which were naturally halted by his arrest, but who knows, had it not happened, we could have had another competitor for the UFC. Knowing what we know now about Khabib opening up his own MMA promotion after retirement, Eagle FC, it's not unreasonable to assume that he could have partnered up with Magomedov and took a high leadership position within Fight Nights Global, kind of like their own Dana White. It's not 100% clear how the two met and why Magomedov took such a liking to Khabib, but it probably has something to do with both hailing from Dagestan. Similar to Khabib, Magomedov was born in a village by the name of Shatopa, about 250 kilometers outside of Makhachkala, Dagestan's capital. As a young man, he was described as extremely focused and smart.
Он был все-таки скромным. Да, и скромным. Начитанный очень.
But also a formidable physical force. Standing at almost 6 feet 5, he would often get into physical confrontations around the city and at the local beach, sometimes multiple times a day, something that was apparently normal in Dagestan. You might remember this hilarious rant from Khabib against Tony Ferguson, likely stemming from this culture.
Who are you? You never fight in the street. You American guy. In American, you cannot fight in the street.
There we go.
I am from real mountain. I can eat you in street
Here we go.
His older brother Magomed was described as a prodigy, a wunderkind, and a borderline genius by the locals, and Ziyavudin was looked at as being cut from the same cloth. Once the Soviet Union fell apart in the early 90s and jobs became scarce, the two, along with their cousins Ahmed and Magomed Bilalov, would end up moving to Moscow to attend the Moscow State University, the most prestigious college in Russia, and major in economics. I don't know about the early 90s, but currently Moscow State University is ranked 54th out of 2,785 colleges in Europe and 171st out of over 14,000 colleges in the world. It's an extremely prestigious and difficult school to get into and has a 12% acceptance rate. For comparison, Cambridge, the #1 school in Europe, according to edurank.org, has a 21% acceptance rate. All of this is to say that 4 people from the same exact family being able to get into this university at the same exact time is mind-blowing. Those are some elite genes. Ziyavudin claims that he made his first million along with his brother buying and selling computers, but the real money came when the two bought Diamond Bank in the mid-90s. The bank was known for running shady financial schemes, not an uncommon occurrence in Russia at the time, and eventually lost its banking license in 2001. But by that point, the brothers had enough money to invest into the oil business and formed a relationship with Semyon Weinstock, the president of Transneft, the largest oil pipeline company in the world, responsible for transporting about 80% of oil and 30% of oil products in Russia. The older Magomedov brother was said to have an innate talent for communication, effortlessly being able to make friends in high places, the highest of which was at the very top. The brothers were said to have a very close personal relationship with Dmitry Medvedev during his 4-year presidency and thrived during his term. They had so many businesses ranging from oil and gas sector assets to port logistics, engineering, construction, and telecommunications that Ziyavudin founded a holding company called Suma Group. Suma means sum in Russian, so kind of a self-explanatory name. Suma Group would sponsor different sports in areas where they wanted to do business. It wasn't just MMA that Ziyavudin was interested in, but also sports like hockey and soccer. However, he took a special interest in Khabib. The two were even sometimes compared. Some people looked at Magomedov as the Khabib of business, a relentless fighter that broke through every single barrier. Kamil Gadzhiev, a president of Fight Nights Global, recalled how Magomedov predicted that Khabib would be a bigger combat athlete in Russian-speaking countries than Fedor Emelianenko, something that seemed unimaginable at the time, but eventually ended up coming true. But one problem that the Magomedov brothers seem to have is they tended to conduct their businesses through relationships with those that are second in command, and as it turned out, even Medvedev wasn't truly the one in charge, so once Vladimir Putin regained his presidency, their troubles began. First, Ahmed Bilalov, one of the cousins who originally moved Ziyavudin and Magomed to Moscow in the early 90s and became a successful businessman in his own right, was publicly chastised by Putin for not delivering on work that was promised by his company. Some years later, Ziyavudin's Suma Group was accused of embezzling over 2 million rubles or over $35 million US in construction of the World Cup Stadium in Kaliningrad. This was the event that led to both brothers being detained by the Russian government and prompted the speech from Khabib post-UFC 223. In 2022, both Ziyavudin and Magomed were sentenced to 19 and 18 years in prison respectively. Both maintain their innocence, and there are theories about the arrests being politically motivated, mostly due to the fact that Suma Group refused to sell some of their assets to government-backed entities and figures. All in all, the arrest is a very sad occurrence, not just for Khabib and his team, but also for the whole region of Dagestan due to its small size and the status of Ziyavudin and Magomed within the community. They were kind of like hometown heroes where they were from. Now, even though Ziyavudin was absolutely instrumental to Khabib's career, he was just a footnote in Conor's rant against him at the UFC 229 pre-fight press conference. A man that bore a much larger brunt of his rage, however, was Khabib's manager.
Shut your mouth, Ali Abdelaziz, mad terrorist, terrorist snitch. I know a lot about you as well, you mad rat. I know a lot about you as well. You keep your mouth shut here. Let me take my picture. How's Noah? How's Noah, huh? Yeah, shut your mouth. Never speak about me. Ever in your life. Watch yourself around me. Because you'll be out of here quick.
Now, a slightly younger and much blonder and slower speaking me already made a video on Ali Abdelaziz, and I recommend you checking it out when you have the time. I'll give you a general outline of Ali's misdeeds in this video as well, but really he's just a bridge connecting Khabib to much worse figures. The terrorist snitch accusations about Ali come from a book called Enemies Within, where he was mentioned as being recruited by the NYPD and the FBI in 2002 in order to act as a spy within a group called Muslims of America, or MOA, which has been previously linked to acts of terrorism. Him being involved with this group is a verifiable fact. There is even picture evidence. There are also claims of illegitimate children, financial fraud, identity theft, and even an underage bride that seem to have some credence to them. One thing that I sometimes see mentioned online is that Ali was pulled off one of the planes headed for the World Trade Center on 9/11. That is simply not true. Ali was pulled off a plane in Egypt before 9/11 in a completely unrelated incident where he allegedly flew out to see his mother. It didn't have anything to do with terrorism, but more so identity fraud. That's not to say that he's a great guy or anything, but he's not connected to that at all. Eventually, he lost favor with both the NYPD and the FBI for supposedly being dishonest. A dishonest snitch, what are the odds? But it's said that Dominance MMA, Ali's management company, was founded with money he made from being an informant. And the same company, along with Ali and the man their website lists as the president of Dominance MMA Russia, Rizvan Magomedov, has been linked time and time again to Chechen dictator. Rizvan is this tall guy you often see in the octagon. Him and Khabib are from the same city, and he's also the CEO of Eagle FC. The two began working together in 2013, and it's likely that he was the one who introduced Khabib to Ali in the first place. Him and Ali represent several fighters linked to Kadyrov's fight promotion, Hamad MMA, and even oversaw a deal that saw former UFC heavyweight champion Fabricio Verdum become the brand ambassador for Hamad MMA. Sagid Murtazaliev, Magomed Ankalaev, and Abdul Karim Adilov are just a couple of fighters simultaneously linked to both Dominance MMA and Ramzan Kadyrov. And Khabib himself has been the guest of Kadyrov's on several different occasions. The dictator has expressed support for Khabib and vice versa, to some outrage from the media, although that seems to have stopped in recent years. It's unclear why the two are no longer close, at least publicly, but they have been involved in several disagreements. Namely, when Khabib got into a social media spat with Russian rapper Timati, a personal friend of Kadyrov's, over a cancelled concert in Dagestan with an artist from Timati's label Black Star Entertainment, calling it no big loss. And when Kadyrov called Khabib the UFC's project and attempted to match him up with his own project, Hamad Chimaev. Kadyrov has been accused of many human rights violations, perhaps most famously relating to gay people. Chechnya has been accused of having a full-on anti-gay purge where they kidnapped, unlawfully detain, torture, and even murder men suspected of being gay or bisexual. He famously said that there are no gay men in Chechnya.
I wanted to ask you about the alleged roundup, abduction, and torture of gay men in the Republic. What, Mr. President, do you want to say about that?
Вот сейчас, вот к чему он, вот, почему он приехал, вот пришел к тому, да, вопросу, да, это ерунда. У нас таких людей нету. Нету у нас геев. Если есть, заберите в Канаду, хвала Аллаху, подальше от нас.
Something that was satirized in the movie Eurovision Song Contest, the story of the fire saga with Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams.
Are you gay?
No, of course not. I'm Russian.
No.
There are no gay people in Russia.
Statistically speaking, I think that's impossible.
I assure you, 100%.
Gender fluid.
Fact of truth, not gay Russian.
Non-binary?
Non-binary, I he, him pronoun. He, him.
Kadyrov has also been accused of several assassinations and attempted assassinations of people who were opposed to him abroad. In one instance, an assailant climbed through a window and tried to bludgeon blogger Tumso Abdurrahmanov with a hammer in Sweden prior to being overpowered. A veteran Russian reporter, Anna Politskovskaya, wasn't as lucky and was allegedly shot dead in 2006 while she was working on a piece exposing human rights violations in Chechnya. Kadyrov seems to operate on fear, and he's indiscriminate in who he chooses to target. A great example of this is when Russian MMA icon Fedor Emelianenko chose to publicly speak out against the culture of young children being matched up in MMA fights, something that occurred under the Ahmad MMA banner. Allegedly in response, his 16-year-old daughter was attacked on her way home from school and had to be treated at the hospital for contusions to her chest and stomach. But Kadyrov's isn't the only authoritarian regime that Ali Abdelaziz has been linked to. He also formed a relationship with the help of Ali, Sheikh Khalid of the Kingdom of Bahrain recruited several UFC fighters and coaches to help with the upstart of KHK MMA team as well as Brave FC. Notable names included Khabib Nurmagomedov, Frankie Edgar, and in a very bizarre twist, John Kavanagh, Conor McGregor's coach. While not having anything specific linked to him, Sheikh Khalid represents a monarchy that's been accused of several human rights violations, specifically when it comes to protesters during the pro-democracy marches dubbed the Arab Spring in 2011. Bahraini Prince Nasser bin Hamad Al-Khalifa, for instance, has been accused by the British courts of being directly involved in the torture of 3 prisoners. And since we're in the general geographical vicinity of the United Arab Emirates, I should probably mention that Khabib has also been seen on camera with. In 2018, the two were pictured together in Dubai, and while the picture doesn't mean much, the two do seem to be friendly, and Sagid Murtazaliev is currently an international fugitive who has been accused of some serious crimes by the Russian government. Murtazaliev was at one time considered to be an elite athlete. In 2000, he took home the gold medal at the Sydney Olympic Games in freestyle wrestling in the heavyweight division, but after being stabbed at a resort in 2002 with the wound grazing his heart, he was forced to retire and go into politics. He shot and killed both of the assailants that stabbed him in self-defense, by the way. He was appointed Deputy Minister of Natural Resources and Ecology of the Republic of Dagestan and quickly rose through the ranks to become the head of the branch of the pension fund of Russia for the Republic of Dagestan in 2010. In 2015, reports began appearing in the media of him being linked to the financing of terrorism as well as the organization of several contract killings along with co-conspirator Andrei Vinogradov, starting all the way back in 1996. Vinogradov's residence was raided, but Murtazaliev was in the United Arab Emirates at the time, where he remains to this day. In September of 2015, his arrest was authorized by the Moscow courts, and he became an international fugitive. Khabib Nurmagomedov is one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time, but he benefited from a lot. Ziyavudin Magomedov made sure that he was financially taken care of in every single way. There wasn't a contract negotiation that he had to worry about, and that gave him a leg up over 99.9% of his competition. Ali and Rizvan carved a great path for him with dominance MMA, flawlessly taking him through social circles that he needed to be in, and in the process sometimes causing him to rub shoulders with figures that are less than reputable. I actually wasn't aware of just how meticulously planned his career was before starting research for this video, and it really surprised me. I wonder if he would have stayed undefeated if he took a more traditional path. And I don't know if Khabib actually condones any of the atrocities committed by Kadyrov and the Bahrain monarchy. I can't tell if he supports Sagid Murtazaliev or if it was just a picture opportunity. What I can say is that if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more videos like this, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell next to it. Consider hitting like or dislike depending on how you felt about the video, and don't hesitate to leave your thoughts down below. Not only does it create a healthy discussion, but it also helps the channel out a lot within the YouTube algorithm. Thanks again, and until next time.